Welcome to the Physical Product Movement, a podcast by Fiddle. We share stories of the world's most ambitious and exciting physical product brands to help you capitalize on the monumental change in how, why, and where consumers buy. I'm your host, Ken Ojuka. In this episode of the Physical Product Movement podcast, I get the chance to speak with Ryan Margolin, CEO of Professional Hair Labs, a leading manufacturer and supplier in the hair and cosmetics industry based in Ireland. We have a conversation about their transition from using co-mans to make their own line of products to then manufacturing those products in-house. They then completed the transition by becoming a contract manufacturer to produce for other brands. Ryan talks about the hidden costs every manufacturer needs to stay on top of, how to finance and bootstrap the expenses of standing up your own production line, and the advantages to brands selecting custom formulations versus private label, and some strategies behind that decision. Coming from a digital marketing background, Ryan also shares some tips as to what's working in terms of marketing and how brands are utilizing social media now to find a market to sell their products to. This was a great conversation applicable to both manufacturers and brands that teaches how to improve your current manufacturing processes, whether you're doing that in-house or using a co-man. His company has had some pretty impressive growth before and through the last few years of COVID, and we appreciate his willingness to share some tips for others looking to do the same. This is a must listen if you've ever debated whether or not you should bring manufacturing in-house to make your CPG product. I think you'll really enjoy this interview. All right. Hey, Ryan. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm not too bad. Ken, yourself?
I am pretty good.
Good.
I'm catching you in Ireland. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, a small bit of a time difference, but look, I hope it's as sunny over there as it is here today.
Well, let's see. It's 9:30 here. What time is it there? 9:30 a.m. here.
Yeah, so it's 4:30 p.m. here.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks for doing this, and we'll get you off on your weekend and as soon as possible. But I really do appreciate you taking the time, and I think. You were telling me about a Jay-Z quote, and I could tell that we were already going to have a great conversation. So why don't we just kick off with that? Why don't you tell me a little bit about this quote that inspires you?
Yeah, look, it's from one of his songs called "The Blueprint," and the quote is, "I will not lose even in defeat. There's a valuable lesson learned, so it evens it up for me." So I think it's a great lyric, mainly because it just shows, the strength in the, I suppose, your mindset and how you can choose to view losses. You can choose to view them negatively, or you can choose to, view them as an opportunity, for success or to succeed. So it's one of the quotes that has always stuck with me. And, it always hits the back of my head every time we run into a challenge that is difficult to solve, or we may not be solving at all. I just know that there's an opportunity within that. So we analyze it and figure out what the issue is, and we try to solve it. If not, we move on.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, and I'm a Jay-Z fan myself, and I think that quote is amazing. I mean, it's almost like you almost have to do that. That's like, let's say that you lose something, you lose a big deal or have a setback. It's almost like the only thing you can do is, okay, let's salvage like at least some learnings from this and get stronger. Figure out how not to make some of the same mistakes. I'm interested in your opinion on this. I've also experienced where it's like you can learn a lot from actually your wins, right? Like from winning. For instance, when I was younger, a teenager, I played on a really good soccer team, and we ended up winning a lot. And it was just, we had this season where it's like no losses, but I can look back and I could say that that's actually one of the seasons, like one of the teams in which I got the best. Like I grew a lot, so everybody always talks about like, learning from losses, but I'm curious what your thoughts are about learning from wins as well.
Yeah, for us, I think consistently winning kind of amplifies the personalities of the people around you. It's funny because winning can actually bring out, complacency in people, or it can bring out an insatiable hunger to continue to win. And I think, look, I think there's a very fine line between the two. I think it all comes down to, keeping your ego in check. We all have egos. It's about recognizing that and, recognizing the need to, nurture that part of your personality, because let's face it, it is one of the parts that motivates you. But realistically, from a winning perspective, I genuinely think you do learn a lot about the people around you during that time. Naturally, you also do learn about the environment that you're in from a perspective of what works, because look, those wins would have not happened had you not had some losses before it to figure out what you may have been doing wrong. So
exactly, yeah,
there's a balance,
Yeah. Yeah. And even, I have a coach who would get very kind of specific and had pretty high standards. And so even in the wins, there were areas in which you could improve, right? There are things within that you can analyze and find where you made some mistakes and where you can get even better, And so it's almost the same process, right? Like when you lose, of course, you look for the mistakes and areas in which you can correct and improve, but you can do the same thing with your wins.
Of course you can. I mean, look, you're never going to be sitting in a space where you're done or it's perfect, because in my eyes, it just simply doesn't exist. There's always ways to be better and improve things, whether it's processes, whether it's performance, whatever it is. The job is never done.
Right. So Ryan, me and you could probably sit around talking about Jay-Z all day long and inspiring quotes. But why don't we jump right into a little bit about your background, where you're from, how you ended up in Ireland, or maybe that's where you're from. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I was born in New Jersey in the U.S. and lived there for a very short period of time. Most of my younger life was in Florida up until about the time where I was 14. And my mother's Irish and my dad is from New York. So when I was 14, we moved to Ireland and I finished school there. So after I finished school, I did a little bit of traveling, different parts of the world. I was in, the US for a little while again. And I came back to Ireland then. So in, kind of 2008, 2009, when, the big economic crash was coming, an opportunity had arose where I was able to connect with my dad's company at the time. And we were able to take a look at, how it was performing and, where we could go with it. So I spent probably the first 6 months learning about the business. And we were able to figure out some really simple but key things we could change to improve it. I mean, my dad and his company had this product line that was essentially had the potential to revolutionize the hair replacement industry. And he had this core product offering that was doing the job. But at the time, I suppose the ingredient technology was non-existent. So the synergy lined up quite well when it did become possible, where we could get, water and sweat resistant properties inside of the bonding adhesives that we were supplying to hair studios and hair salons. So in 2009, by changing some really simple things, and we relaunched the product, it literally just turned the hair replacement industry on its head. And we were able to, within 18 months, triple revenue. Wow. At that point, then we realized, okay, look, we validated the product. I wanted to move back to Europe at the time. And we decided we would invest some money in opening up a European branch. And from that point, then it just kind of year on year started to grow. And about 5 or 6 years ago, we had hit this point in the market where we had started to experience exponential growth, because the product was not only very high performing, but it was actually the safest alternative to what has predominantly always been on the market. So, since then, we've been growing very strong year on year inside of the hair and beauty industry. And that kind of led us then to realize we could apply those same methods and principles to other cosmetics. So we transitioned the company from, being simply company that operates in the non-surgical hair replacement space to operating in a deeper space of cosmetics, where we can do hair care, skin care, body care, you name it. We have the ability to formulate in-house and manufacture. So the company looks a lot different now than it did, even 10 years ago. And, that kind of, brings me to the point that, you always have to be looking to, where you're going and what that evolution is going to look like, because markets change and markets mature. And if you're not staying ahead of that, you're going to start to drop off the cliff, and that's simply what we don't want to happen. So it's been a really interesting journey up to this point. Most of my background over the years that I've worked has been either in sales or marketing, and it's really helped drive some of what we do along with the team, because look, we have a really, really good team in-house at the moment that really know what our goals are, and they know exactly what they need to do to hit them. So it's not to say we don't face challenges along the way, but it's we win more than we lose now at this point, and to me that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's great. So Professional Hair Labs is the name of your company. I noticed your tagline is world leader in cosmetic bonding. What's the bonding? What does that mean?
So cosmetic bonding is an application process for individuals who have lost their hair through hereditary means, or, let's say health issues such as cancer and whatnot, and they go through chemo and naturally they lose their hair. So, hair is a quite intimate thing. It doesn't bother some people when they lose it, but, for a high percentage of individuals globally, it's a big issue. So they choose to either wear wigs or hair pieces. And our product is a skin applied product that will let the wig or the hair unit be attached to the scalp, and over a period of 4 weeks stay in place. And it looks just as natural as you had real hair. So, these type of products weren't always available. Predominantly over the last 40 years, there was a collective of certain products that were used, and they contain harmful ingredients such as, toluene, xylene, hexane, which are all derivatives of gasoline. And because our industry was so small at the time, the FDA chose not to monitor it or govern it. So the manufacturers got away with literally murder. And, look, we brought a safer alternative and a safer solution to the marketplace. And once people started to realize it was available and, exactly what they could do with it, it became a product that just simply showed people there's a different way to do things.
Okay, got it. And so is that what your dad was selling as well? Is it that same?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the same product type. Yes, absolutely. Now it's evolved since then. There's been different adhesives, different performance features. We're now at a point now where we can start to, play with the formula, because we know the base formulation is so solid. So we're finding new ways of application and safety appliances for it.
Okay, that's great. And it sounds like you've primarily had a marketing and sales related role. Is that right?
Yeah, for many years, I did in the company. When I first joined it, it was more so, it wasn't really much of anything. It kind of fell into a marketing role more so than a sales role. But, when we opened our EU location, our European location to distribute globally, I took on a sales role because it was just me at the time. So we started build and grow and build the team out. But that would have been my role, sales and marketing.
Okay, got it. And so I guess there's a lot of different directions we could take this, but one of the things I wanted to just ask about is some of these transition points. So first of all, had you guys always manufactured in-house, or is that something that capability that you later developed?
That came later. They were our formulas. But obviously we didn't have the resources or the equipment to manufacture, so we outsourced it to contract manufacturers to do it for us. Sure.
So what was the thinking behind that change, right? There are people listening right now, right, who are using a co-man for one of their products, and often the difficulty is kind of deciding whether or not to bring that in-house, particularly with all the supply chain issues that we've been facing the last few years. People just want more control. And so this is a conversation that's coming up more and more.
It is. And it was probably one of the main drivers as to why we made the decision to do it, because naturally, cosmetic manufacturers, you'll find some really good ones, but then you'll find some really average ones as well. And when you get an average manufacturer, you get inconsistencies in batches, longer lead times, substitution of ingredients without, making the customer knowledgeable about the change. So ultimately, the customer that's using the product at the very end notices the change. All of these changes are completely out of the control of the company that's supplying the product. So by bringing it in-house and taking control of that, it comes with its own set of challenges and new challenges. But ultimately, the products that are going out the door every single time are consistent and the way they should be. So that was one of the main motivators for us. Now, you're 100% right.
Yeah. One of the other reasons that I hear a lot about is actually to your point about innovating on the product, and being able to do that with more control and with more speed. Did you guys find that was the case for you guys?
Oh, 100%. Once we set the foundations, and we got them right, we were able to take, a 3-month lead time down to a 1-week lead time for us, so, there was never a point where we would run out or we would place the order, say with a contract manufacturer in the allocated time frame and still not receive the product. That whole issue was gone for us immediately. We had control over the raw materials then. So the worst case scenario for us was that if, an ingredient supplier was backed up by say 4 to 6 weeks and we had to extend the time frame, we were still well within the time frames of getting that ingredient in-house.
Yeah. So one of the challenges that we hear about is just the expense of buying, any equipment, leasing a building, hiring employees, buying all the raw materials, beforehand. I'm sure you guys experienced that. How did you think about the financing aspect of standing up a manufacturing company?
Yes. So we're very good with our numbers in terms of how we run our processes. We run our lean systems very well. We know our manufacturing costs, we know our running costs, we know our output costs. We know our overheads very intimately. We haven't financed a single part of our company growth with any external company. Everything has been done from profits of the company. So we've been fortunate enough that we've been in a position to experience a substantial growth curve. And naturally, rather than doing what shareholders or directors normally do and extract all the money, we pumped it right back into the business because we knew ultimately long-term the market we were in was going to mature and what we were doing wasn't going to be as niche as it was when we started it. And naturally that just led us to make the decision to invest most of what we make back into the company to set ourselves for the next phase of the journey.
And so how did that first, I guess, the decision, you made the decision to start manufacturing in-house. So how did that look? I mean, I'm assuming you leased a place or maybe you started manufacturing in the office that you were already in. How did that whole journey look to get it?
Yeah, we started in the location we were already in. So a few years ago, we acquired a 10,000 square foot building. And very quickly then actually it wasn't too long after that, COVID came along. And that brought its own set of challenges because we weren't deemed an essential service. So we were facing shutting our doors. So we pivoted into the manufacturing of hand sanitizer to make sure we could supply, a very important product to the marketplace because there was a shortage at the time. So that helped us keep our plans on track. So we started in the building that we initially purchased. Since then, we've acquired another building, which is taking our manufacturing square footage from 10,000 to 50,000, where we're due to be opening that by the end of the year. So right now it's just about strategically placing the key pieces of equipment in the building we have to, make sure we're meeting our customers' demands. Again, that whole learning curve of moving into that space with the regulations and the compliance and the ISO certs that are commonly asked for and required by companies doing business in Europe and globally, that brought its own set of challenges because, we didn't have the experience in-house. So in some cases we hired people to join the team that were knowledgeable in that. In other cases, we outsourced to consultants. So we were able to speed up that process quite substantially. I mean, we're at the point now where, we pretty much have majority of global regulations checked for us. So there's not a place in the world really that we can't send product at the moment.
And was this manufacturer, was this in Florida or was this in Ireland?
This was in Ireland. So our company, we have a collective of companies that are part of the group, and our principal manufacturing facility is in Ireland, and we chose to do that for two reasons. The first one was typically European regulations are much stricter, so they're held to a higher standard than the US. So we formulate everything that we do with the EU regulations in mind, and that was predominantly one of the drivers that made us kind of choose Ireland as the principal manufacturer. So we do all of our custom formulation here. We do all of our ingredient sourcing here. We do some of our manufacturing here. Some of it is still done in the States, but majority of it is done in Ireland. And it's also helped us because look, the Irish government heavily support US based companies that are heavily involved in research and development on any level. So they've been great in helping us navigate some of those waters too.
Did you know that before you started about the Irish government?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look, it's commonly known, look, Ireland is a great place to do business. Look, they have a low corporation tax. In most cases, it's over 10% less than what's in the United States as well. So naturally, there's a corporation tax saving which can be further reinvested. There's R&D credits, in Ireland that are given by the government against your corporation tax bill as well. So anything that you develop from scratch that's innovative. They will give you certain credits back towards the corporation tax bill at the end of each financial year.
Yeah. So a couple points. A lot of governments actually are trying to foster sort of similar initiatives, right? And with a little bit of research, I think people can find these types of tax credits, and even in some cases there are different grants to get into the manufacturing or research, type industries. Especially, I think that's actually gained momentum, through COVID.
Yeah, of course.
Is that a lot of people are realizing kind of the importance of manufacturing close to home, and that being a part of their local economy.
Of course. And that comes down to a lot of the local enterprise, boards or committees. The focus starts on the ground level. And then as your company grows and you become out of scope of the local scope, you move into more of the national, and then there's further supports and grants and help. It's truly a great thing because look, there's companies that can do it on their own, and then there's companies that also can do it on their own but could do it 10 times faster with the support. And really what these governing bodies really want to focus on is employment levels. So if you show that you're growing and you're moving in the right direction and that you're employing key positions for companies, they're very interested in seeing what they can do to assist you in any way, because ultimately that's why a lot of the big US corporations look to Ireland to open their European hubs or even their global hubs, because there's just so many benefits of doing business in Ireland. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, so I want to just double click a little bit on the finance issue. It's probably one of the big reasons I think a lot of people don't go into manufacturing. That, and then probably just lack of expertise, feeling very intimidated by the process. But just back to the financing piece. I mean, let's assume that maybe you didn't have the funds, in-house to do this. Obviously you can go get, a lot of people can get a loan, that kind of thing. But one of the things that I've seen work as I've worked with different manufacturers is actually not setting up your ideal process immediately, right? Like take it step by step. Maybe don't buy, the big, don't buy the big production, automated line immediately. Start just much more simple. And then what you can do is as that works, you can reinvest those funds. Have you seen that? And maybe that's actually similar to the path that you actually took.
Yeah, it is actually some of the path that we actually took. I mean, naturally, people love the idea of having, big and bold and, this amazing latest cutting edge piece of technology that can do everything from A to Z in 2 minutes. That's amazing. It is. And you know what? When you get to a point of scale, it's necessity. Mm-hmm. But realistically, when you look at any type of manufacturing, the key question you have to ask getting started is, with a little bit more effort and a little bit more labor, can I put this together with really simple machinery? And usually the answer is yes. There's always a different way to do things. And really the key is how little do you have, when you're first starting, how little do you have to spend to get the output, the product finished in your hands, ready to sell? And then the next question comes, okay, depending on how much time this takes, realistically, how many of these am I able to make and sell per day? If those numbers, align, you'll be doing pretty well. And I think that's always the great way to start. I mean, look, we started with a really, small, simple machine. And we kind of built from there. I think our first machine investment was somewhere around I think it was less than $10,000, so you do what you have to do to get the output. And then, the rest will come if you have good processes behind that, if you have good marketing and good sales. And people love the journey. They love to see it. They love to connect with it. So, if you're sharing a lot of that content on social media, people buy into that because they realize then is that, you can be this massive company, but it all starts somewhere. And, usually it starts in a single room or a small, little warehouse, so it's, there's so many different ways you can achieve what you want to achieve. But ultimately, if you're looking at the financing route, the real question is, how little do I have to finance to really get the output of that I need from product we're making, and then take it from there.
Right. And then the other way that I've seen this work out too is that you end up getting a PO from a customer who maybe needs, it's kind of pushing on your capabilities, right? Like they need you to produce at a scale that maybe you're not at quite yet, but you can structure the deals in where you can actually buy or build the capability, off of some of those purchase orders from these customers.
Exactly. And I think it's when you hit a point like that, it becomes about negotiation. And this is where, you as the business owner have to be a little bit clever about how you approach it. Ultimately you can hit the target, but you just might not be able to hit the target as quickly as you can or as they need it. So that there are key ways you can look at it, to make sure that you either do it in phases and you can get, deposits paid up front to ensure you can acquire whatever it is you need, whether it's more ingredients, whether it's machinery. There are key ways that you can structure the deal to make sure that it's a win-win all around. Because usually, if your overheads are not too high, you can be quite competitive with your pricing. But then on the flip side, where you get caught is if you don't have the buying power to buy, large amounts of ingredients, you're not getting the best price that you can. So really, you have to really ask yourself, when you're building, when you take on a purchase order from a client that might be, pushing, as you said, the limits of what you can produce, you really need to be asking yourself, are you going to be able to effectively service this client? Because, if you can't, then you end up taking on something that ultimately is just going to cripple you, and you won't be able to follow through on your promises. And usually that just ends up in an absolute disaster because you end up missing timelines. Those timelines can push on with the supplier to where if they're not getting what they paid for, they will end up, taking legal action against you. There's a whole slew of different challenges that come. Like people look at the purchase order and the value, and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I need this. But you have to be just a little bit more clever about how you approach it, especially if that PO is pushing your output capacity.
Right. Right. Yeah. And the downside also of missing these timelines. Sometimes there's penalties involved. Sometimes you have to offer discounts. And so you're just eating away at any profit that you would have taken. And it is about building a relationship though, as well. It's like, look, if you knew that this particular customer could commit to X amount per year, and
and you knew you didn't, you in some cases would actually run those first couple of orders at zero profit to make sure that, number one, that you are able to acquire the equipment that you need. Mm-hmm. And number two, you're able to extend the resources of your output, So, look, I'm pretty sure, there's been cases where you're looking at, a number such as maybe $100,000 or $200,000 over the space of a year, which in terms of cosmetics is small numbers. But, if you're just starting, that's a huge number. So it's really about, are you willing to take the hit on the profitability to sometimes be zero, just so you could get what you need to move into the next phase. There's a lot of grinding when it comes to building that initial phase of a cosmetics company.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, one of the things that I've noticed is the process of setting up a manufacturing company actually kind of mirrors something that you see in like coding and like software engineering. It's almost like that first manufacturing facility that you set up, or that first sort of production line that you set up, is sort of like your minimum viable production line, right? It's kind of another way to look at it. In software engineering, you always talk about the minimum viable product, the MVP. It's just what is the basic amount of functionality you can get out just to get the ball rolling. And then the process is actually very iterative. It looks a lot like software engineering. You continue to improve until you actually end up with a pretty decent product, And in this case, it would be the production line, where it's like, it may look pretty rough that first few months, that first year. But as you continue to iterate on it, I mean, you can end up with a pretty slick production line where you're doing a huge number. Yeah,
because you either do one of two things: you build out on it, or you improve the mechanics of it. Look mm-hmm. Again, like software. It's like you program it and you write different. I'm sure there's different ways to write. The language that you're programming in. Mm-hmm. It's much like the mechanics of a filling line. It's like you might be using different pistons or different valves or different filling heads, different nozzles. There's better ways to upgrade the machine or add on to it to improve it. So you're 100% correct there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's power in looking at these things as iterative, a lot of times entering like so just speaking from the world of software, you enter a really competitive market and you look at, some of the incumbents and you think, wow, their product is so slick. They've been around for so long. But you also need to realize that they did the same thing, right? When they first started, they did not look the way they look now. And it was just, effort over a number of years that led them to the product that they have now. And I think that a lot of people look at manufacturing that exact same way.
Yeah, you'd like to hope so, because typically, you look at it, you looked at a mature product where there's been many years of development and testing behind it. And people look at that and think that's what they have to achieve straight off the bat. And there becomes this whole thing of overwhelm, and then it just stops them from moving forward. So right. The key is starting as simple as possible with, the functionality that you absolutely need and only what you need, and then building upon that.
Yeah. So one of the things that surprised me about this entire space was that there's a huge network of consultants that are available to help people that are doing this kind of thing. When you kind of look at your journey, is there any particular sort of area of consultation that you felt was really helpful and was kind of an unlock for you guys?
Yeah, for us, it was just simply the lean process, the lean manufacturing process, making sure that we were able to, effectively record our processes and our workflows and know at every stage what they're costing us, So without that, you do two things. You, number one, incorrectly price products, which ultimately, if you get that wrong, you're in trouble. And number two, it gives you a better understanding of, exactly what you need to reinvest to, move into your next phase of growth. Because essentially what you're doing in the most part, when you're expanding a production line, is you're replicating the systems you already have, twice. And then you're looking for any, interchangeable parts of the process that you can pull out and place in what you need. So sometimes it's an extension. It's just more product you need outputted. So you just need more machinery. But sometimes it's a new product that requires a different type of machinery, but you can still apply the same lean manufacturing processes to that line. So that like, I think for myself, my opinion would be, know your numbers on your manufacturing. And once you do that, you're in a very good space.
And so, let's double click on that a little bit. Knowing your numbers, are there any particular numbers that you think every manufacturer, should know and should really invest in being able to know at all times?
Yeah, well, obviously you need to know from the production line, how many people are needed for that particular machine. So what does that cost on a daily basis and on a monthly basis? Secondly, you need to know the amount of electricity that the machines consume. So that helps you work out your costs. You also need to know, like, typically it's good to have an ERP system connected to the filling line, because that will allow you then to monitor the downtime of the machine, because obviously that has to be built into, to the running costs. Like there are some really, key variables that you really need to be focusing on, because you can order in a ton of ingredients and what they cost per pound, per kilo, whatever way you want to look at it. But realistically, the hidden costs that get you, especially when you start to max out your resources. You've given a price on a product, and what the product is costing you from a perspective of per pound or per kg. But if you don't know what numbers it takes to run those off, then you're not going to be able to effectively, number one, be competitive in pricing, and you're not going to be able to make any profit off it, which ultimately the company needs to make profit. It's of some sort.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting from a manufacturing, and especially contract manufacturing. Those costs are really, really important, even just to be able to win the deals, right? You need to be able to accurately quote very quickly, but then also make sure that you're not burying yourself by accepting a deal that you're ultimately losing a bunch of money on,
And that's the important part about what we do, though, is that, look, we build out catalogs of different products. So at every point, we know before they even get launched into the catalog, we know what those numbers are. So if someone comes to us and says, listen, I'm looking for a face cream, it's like, all right, well, look, this is the actual cost per kg. This is the minimum quantity for this run, for this type of product that we need. And we can help you out with, with the labeling, with the design, with whatever you need. We can help with all of that in-house. So it's made quite simple. But the key to all of that is knowing your numbers, because you're competitive, but you also know that you're not going to get caught on your output or your resources.
So let's double click on that just one more time. The hidden costs. Are there any hidden costs that you found in your process that were surprising, that led to, once you were able to factor those in, it really kind of improved the way your numbers looked or improved your process?
It was the downtime for the machinery. Look, I mean, we have targeted outputs that we know each day that we want certain machines to hit. But sometimes, a part would break, a valve would blow, something would go wrong with the machine. But for us, the hidden cost was the downtime. We weren't really factoring that or calculating that in. And some days we would fall short. But realistically, if you add that up over the space of a month, that could end up to, tens of thousands of dollars or euros, if a machine is down for, say, 5-6 hours. It's that was one of the big hidden costs that we weren't calculating for some time, that when we realized the impact of it, very quickly we made those changes. And that's why, we have software that can help us calculate that. Yeah.
No, that's a good one. Any other ones that come to mind? Any other hidden costs?
No, hidden costs that come to mind would be another one would be, so if you've got a production overflow where you get an order where sometimes a resource on a machine is maxed out, obviously there's some manual labor that you have there. Sometimes you're not really planning for an overage on the machines. So try to avoid manual filling at all costs, but sometimes when something does overflow, typically those are hidden costs not built into the kg price or the pound price. So you do get caught there from time to time, depending on the orders, or if a machine is down for a particular time and runs and it gets backed up for too long. It takes you a few more hours to pull out of that deficit. So that's another hidden cost that you need to be mindful of.
Sure. Yeah. So switching gears just a little bit, there's the, you guys focus, it looks like looks like you do some custom stuff, but if I'm reading correctly, majority of your sales are like white labeling your existing products. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd say majority of our sales with actually no, there's a healthy split between custom formulations and private labeling. It's
okay.
Like we private label and custom manufacture or custom formulate for quite a few companies, and look, it's like our most popular product would obviously be our adhesive lines in terms of our own branded product, but we manufacture so many different other types of products for quite a few companies. And look, realistically, I'd say it wouldn't be far off a 50-50 split,
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that. So one of the things that, when I came into this industry, I actually didn't know about this whole, private label option. Yeah. I ended up launching like a nutraceutical product. It was like a supplement, a pill, like a energy, sort of adrenal fatigue type pill. And when I was looking at doing that, I thought I had to like hire, somebody to do the formulation, to, basically do it from scratch. And then, actually looking into it a couple of years later, found out that, wow, there's this entire world of white label or private label, where manufacturers like yourself have products ready to go. And you can get your label put on it.
Yeah, and look, and it's the same with ourselves. We have our branded products that we offer the service. Someone can come in and say, "Listen, I like this product. Can I just put my label on it?" It's like, absolutely. So it takes a lot of the process out of launching a product as well. You already have a tried and tested solution there that you can just put your branding on, and then go to market. So it's a really effective way to start your own brand. Look, I suppose then sometimes where you get caught is that if you need certain performance features, changing those formulations become a challenge, which is why I always, say to customers of ours is that, look, if you feel that, after the test, if you feel like you're going to want any function or performance from this, we should really be looking at a custom formula, because, then you enter into a different side of our processes. If it's private label, it's literally account application approved into our online store, and you can order the private label products. Whereas, if it's a custom formula, there's, direct points of contact. There's much more involvement in the process, even from the ordering side of things. So you get a much more tailored service because it needs to be that.
Right. Yeah. So maybe we can just double click a little bit on the pluses and minuses of both options. Right. And in my career, I've done a little bit of both, and there are different reasons for it. But, why would somebody, choose private label over custom formulation and vice versa?
One would be the expense. Look, I mean, obviously it takes time and resource to custom formulate, because you've got to go through the whole process of, building a formula, manufacturing development sample, doing the challenge and stability testing, which take weeks and months sometimes. Uh-huh. There's a cost involved to it. Whereas with private label, it's like, hey, I like that product. I know it's already ready for market. I want to buy it, put my label on it, and go. So there's a time difference there. Private label, you could get to market within a matter of a week, between ordering, receiving, and then getting it up on your own site. Whereas with custom formula, you're looking, depending on what you choose, you could choose a base formulation that we have, and it usually brings down the time to about 4 to 6 weeks. But if you're looking at full custom formula, it's about 12 weeks. The processes, it can even push to 16 depending on what type of product it is. So there is a time difference. There's a cost difference. But on the plus side, from the custom formula, you get exactly what you're looking for, with nothing left unturned. There's, full access to the lab team that can essentially do whatever is needed. And if you have a thought that you wanted to, if you have a function you wanted to produce, it can be done. It just, it just takes time.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that comes to mind is even just the differentiation in the market, right? So if you have a specific ingredient that you want to include, or specific formula you have in mind, for some functional properties, just being able to say that you're, the only one in the market with that ingredient, or, you've got a unique formulation, that can help you on the marketing side and sales side.
Of course. Look, I mean, the USP of the product is vitally important. I mean, why would somebody pick your product off the shelf over, the competitor sitting next to you? When you custom formulate, you're able to differentiate your product very well. I mean, naturally with our own product line, we always aim to do that with every single formula we put out. There are key differences, but when somebody private labels they're not their key differences. There are key differences that if you look at somebody, if you look at our product and look at their product, it's going to have pretty much the same performance functions. So somebody was inclined to, do some research, they'd see that. But, look, it really just comes down to what you want for your business. We even have some accounts that do, the hybrid model. They private label some of our stuff and they custom formulate others, for ideas that they have. So there's plenty of ways to get the result you want for your business, but it just depends on really what you are looking for.
Right. And some of the strategies that I've seen work is, you private label maybe the first version of the product just to be able to test the market and see if you can actually, make the sales hit those numbers. But then you release like a V2 or an improved formula where you might customize it, for the benefits of that.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, we have a couple of, of our accounts who did exactly that. They private labeled a couple of our products at the very beginning, and, they started to custom formulate with us then, and they built a phenomenal brand for themselves. And it's, they penetrated the market very well that they were looking to do. So it is possible. It's just, I think the key is try not to get too caught up in the all the intricacies of it. If you have an idea and you want to get launched as quickly as possible, look for that private label option, look for the product that best suits it. But do always choose to work with somebody who, I believe can custom formulate, because you'll get the best out of out of your business, out of your brand, and you'll have a team there to support you for the things that you don't really need to be thinking about building your business. You want to be able to just grow and not think about all the the compliance issues or the different ingredients that need to be put together to make the the function or the feature that you want in the product. So there's a lot to be said for it.
Yeah, and obviously, just kind of a final note on this is as you private label versus custom formulate, I mean it definitely affects the minimum order quantities, at least with most manufacturers that I've worked with. And so that's also just a factor to take in when trying to decide which version to do, right?
Absolutely. Look, I mean, private label naturally requires less of a MQO than custom formula, so, like even for us, we're extremely flexible. You want to come in and order one bottle, go for it. That if that's what you want to do, that's your choice. We can cater for that. But if you want to order 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, we can do that too. And if you want to, custom formulate, you need, 20,000, 40,000, 100,000 units. Let's do it. It's, you have to cater for all different types of scenarios. And I feel with a lot of the manufacturers that are operating in the marketplace today, the large ones in specific, they don't cater to that. They only want big business, but there's windows being missed there, of smaller companies that are trying to etch their way in the marketplace. And when you add all those up, I mean that there's good business there.
Yeah, no, it's true. Just kind of a final note. I mean, you obviously have a marketing background. One of the things that I discovered about manufacturers is that they actually get a view into, a lot of brands and what's actually working, how those brands are able to find their market, and successfully sell into that market. Do you have anything that you see working in the market right now? I mean, as we speak, it's middle of 2022. These marketing techniques change, and different marketplaces are better at certain times. Is there anything that maybe some tips that you've been able to pick up from brands that are being successful right now?
Yeah, hands-on tutorials and insights into the, not into the operations, but the way things are done. I'm finding a lot of the smaller brands are, getting some decent market share from just heavily investing their own time in social media, not outsourcing, thumbnail posts or, sales that they have on, although collectively they do that too. But I think where the biggest impact is that, people want to feel connected to the brands in this day and age. And they're looking for, they're looking to see the face of somebody, they want to see, the hero in the story. And I think that's working very well, especially in the cosmetic space at the moment, because a lot of the smaller brands now that are coming up, they have someone as the face of the company who are showing people, how to use the products, what to avoid when using the products, or maybe some of the pitfalls that they can avoid, using a cosmetic product that, without naming competitors, they would make it very clear what type of competitors or which competitors to avoid the products from. I've seen all sorts of stuff, but it all comes down to someone being the face of the brand. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good tip. All right. Well, let's, we've been going for a while, and what I've found, just in my journey, understanding sort of manufacturing, is it's fascinating, and there's so many different facets of it. So before we head into the quick fire round, for just four last questions, has there been anything that you found surprising about the manufacturing space, or maybe something that you've enjoyed that you didn't maybe anticipate?
Yes, I think, the thing that I've enjoyed the most out of it is just, watching the team grow and improve and learn. Look, it's, we have individuals, even in our company, who came in as warehouse operatives who are now training to be chemists, so I've really enjoyed the process of the company growth, actually putting people in a position to have the opportunity. So for me, that's been the key thing. It's just watching people improve and watching the team improve. That would be my 100% thing that I would say I enjoy the most out of the operations.
Okay, got it. All right, so quick fire round. What's one tool or resource that you feel has helped you the most in your current position?
Geez, that's a good question. We actually use quite a lot of quite a lot of different software, but I think right now, what's giving me the most benefit would be Salesforce. We started using it about a year ago, and we've heavily invested in developing our whole environment into all the data going in through that. So that's really been an eye opener for me. Rather than using 5 or 6 pieces of software to get the data you need, it's all coming into one dashboard now. So that's my input.
Okay, great. Salesforce. What is one book that you could recommend to the audience?
Winning by Tim Grover. I think for me that had a huge impact out of the most recent books that I've read. I've been a huge fan of him for many, many years. And I think it just basically explains very well the difference between the individuals who say they're going to do and the individuals who actually do.
What is one piece of advice that you'd give your 21-year-old self?
Don't listen too much to other people, because in my eyes, you have to protect your ears. One wrong bit of information or one bit of projection of fear from someone else that you take on board will, derail you for many years. So I think, if you have something in your head, go for it, and just don't worry about what anyone else tells you in relation to how that's going to turn out for you.
And who's, another entrepreneur in your field of work that maybe you'd love to take to lunch?
That's a good question. For me, I'm a huge advocate for personal development, and especially around mindset and stuff. So, I think, for me, it would be Tim Grover, because he, he's worked with some of the most elite athletes in the world and business people. And I think, within that brain of his, he's got quite a lot of information that he probably hasn't even shared to this date. So I just think realistically, he has the key. What separates, the doers from the don't.
Okay, got it. Well, as we wrap here, just looking at the rest of 2022, what do you guys have coming up on the horizon that you're pretty excited about?
Our product development. So, look, we're going to be adding between now and the end of the year 50 new products to our line. By the end of 2023, we should have a product catalog of around 300 different products. So there's going to be a huge offering to companies in the cosmetic space. We're very aggressive in what we're trying to achieve at the moment. And I'm in no doubt that the team will hit those goals.
Yeah. Any particular areas of cosmetics that you guys are investing in, or is this kind of across the board?
No, well, it is across the board, but we're really focused right now at the moment on skincare. We're doing a lot of R&D with different types of ingredients. For example, one of the ones we're working on at the moment is a serum and cream with bee venom. So, too much bee venom can unfortunately kill a person, but in the right amounts, it kind of gives the Botox effect and without the need for Botox. So, we're experimenting with that at the moment. And we were able to work with a venom farm that actually ethically is able to extract the venom from the bees without killing them. It would be a very small electrical currents on their nets that kind of entice them to release the venom into the trays beneath. So it's a very effective way of getting what we need without actually doing any harm to them. So that's one of the products we're experimenting with at the moment. It's really exciting.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. All right. And just as we wrap here, what are some final, words of advice or thoughts that you could share with other people that are currently in the grind? They either have a brand or they're running manufacturing facility. What would your, kind of parting words be to those people?
I would just say, look, I mean, at the end of the day, no matter what stage of business you're in, whether you're starting or, whether you're into your many years of developing your business, I think, just be mindful of the need for outward approval. There's no one that's going to be there patting you on the back through the journey. And most people who are, listening to this probably know that already, but the work always has to come before people will believe in the product or the service that you're offering. So there's going to be many days and nights where you're going to be going hard at it, where there's going to be no one to tell you you're great or to give you approval. So just get that out of your head and just know that what you're doing is what you're meant to be doing because you planned it yourself. You know that this is what you want to do, and just keep going, because eventually it will turn, and eventually you will start to get people to see the potential and the value in what you've built. And that's the moment where things change, because it's the same process almost for everyone. No one believes, and then all of a sudden everyone believes.
Hey, that's a great note to wrap on, and I think those are wise words for all the entrepreneurs that are listening. Hey, Ryan, I appreciate you taking the time. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ken. I appreciate it.
The Physical Product Movement Podcast is brought to you by Fiddle. To find out more about Fiddle and how our industry-leading inventory ops platform is giving modern brands and manufacturers full visibility into their inventory and operations, visit fiddle.io, and then make sure to search for Physical Product Movement in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Fiddle, thanks for listening.